So first of all, we want to say thank you to everybody for joining us tonight. We know this is an important issue and an issue that a lot of people feel very passionately about in Lewis County. We've got some material that we'd like to get through at the top of the meeting, and then we'll turn it over to you folks for some comments and questions. So first I want to introduce the folks that are up here with us this evening. We've got the Lewis County Board of Legislators. From Harrisville, Phil Hathaway. From Beaver Falls, Lisa Burkle. From Denmark, Jessica Mosher. From Green, Lee Willard. From right here in Lowville, Dick Chartrand. From Watson, Andrew Morahan. From Turin, Josh Loker. From Lyons Falls, we have the Chairman Larry Dahlhoff. Vice Chairman Tom Osborne couldn't join us this evening. And from West Leiden, we have Jeff Longback. So, this is the goal for this evening. We're going to hit some topics, and then, as I said, we'll turn it back over to you folks for your opportunity to weigh in as well. So, we're going to talk about what is Rails to Trails. We'll make sure everybody's on the same page about what we're talking about. We're going to talk about why the county feels that investment is important at this time. We're going to talk about what could be purchased, really the specifics of the deal that is on the table. We'll talk about how the county will pay for it. We'll talk about the development process, moving forward, and then there's a few other details and then, like I said, we'll have public comment. So, what is Rails to Trails? It's fairly straightforward. Rails to Trails is where you convert existing railways into recreational trails. It's exactly what it sounds. It's extremely common across the United States. There's 27,000 miles of rail trails in the United States, and in fact, there's 1,300 miles of rail trail in New York State. In Lewis County, we already have 8 miles of rail trail from Glenfield to Lyons Falls, which the county owns and maintains. There's also other rail trail investments happening in the North Country right now. There's a project underway to make from Old Forge to Lake Placid. You might have seen in the news earlier this week the Saranac Lake portion of that project was breaking ground underway. And here's a picture from our Rails to Trails in Lewis County so you get an idea of the existing rail trail that we already have. So, why is Rails to Trails important, and why does the county feel that now is the right time to make this investment? And it comes down to 3 pieces. The first is to promote community growth. The second is to promote community health, and the third is to respond to the needs of the community. So we'll start with growth, promoting community growth. Rails to Trails has been something that's been on the agenda in Lewis County for many years. Many of you guys have been following that process for many years. In fact, in 2009, when the Board of Legislators adopted the comprehensive plan, one of the action items was to continue to pursue Rails to Trails, because they understood the economic opportunity even in 2009 that this project could bring. Just to catch everybody up, like I said, it's been a while that we've been working on this. 2012 was the last time that there was an opportunity on the table. We re-engaged with GBT in 2018-19, and we do have an additional deal that's on the table this morning. So, we're talking about community growth. Why is that important? Well, let's look at our peer communities. Let's look at what communities across northern New York, rural northern New York communities are facing. And this represents population loss from 2010 to 2020. Okay? We have very similar demographics as Franklin, Herkimer, Oswego County. We have similar geography, we have similar economic bases, and those are communities that are not doing well. They're losing people. When you're losing population, it's like trying to swim upstream. It's very difficult to maintain the assets that you have. It's very difficult to stabilize your tax base. It's a major problem. Lewis County is lucky. We've only lost 2% in the last census, and that's because we're in the bubble of Fort Drum. But that doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to continue that way. In fact, we know for a fact that Lewis County is getting older, and the likelihood that we're going to lose more population is very strong. The median age in Lewis County has increased dramatically over the last 10 years. We're getting older at a faster pace than New York State. We're getting older at a faster pace than the United States. In fact, Cornell University, they have a Department of Applied Demographics, they project that by 2040, in Lewis County, for every 1 working age person, we'll have one non-working age person. So think about what that means to the economy. Think about what that means if you're trying to build manufacturing here in Lewis County. Because we're going to have a very hard time maintaining our workforce. We're going to have a very hard time maintaining our tax base. And those things are fundamental to the health of a community. So it is important, we feel, to make investments that might help reverse those trends. Like I said, projected working age, folks, that's not a good trend. Our working age population is projected to go down dramatically. And our projection of retirees is starts to go up dramatically. And look at our projected youth population, ages 0 to 17, projected to drop dramatically. Now, I know what you're thinking, Brian, these are just projections. Well, let's look at the trends. Lewis County school enrollment. This isn't a projection, this is right off the State Department of Education website. It is a fact that Lewis County is not retaining young families, and we do not have a next generation that is as strong as the previous. In Lowville Academy, so this is 2000, okay? 2000 school enrollment to 2020, and then the State Education Department, because they know the class sizes now, can project a little bit ahead into 2026. So this is from 2000 to 2026 projected. Lowville Academy school enrollment down 22%. Beaver River down 22%. Harrisville down 33%. Copenhagen almost 30%. South Louis over 30%. So again, this is not a projection. This is a reality and something that our community is currently dealing with. The second reason we feel this is important to invest in our community is because of community health. Lewis County's population health is not the strongest. We are in the top 5, maybe a bit of an understatement. We're in the top 5 in the entire New York State for adolescent and adult obesity. We're in the top 5 in New York State for heart disease. We're in the top 5 in New York State for high blood pressure and diabetes. Often, we rank #1 in these categories across the state. We are, unfortunately, #1 in mental health and suicide rates. #1 in the state. So it is imperative that we invest in opportunities for folks to get outside, enjoy the beautiful community that we have here, and make more healthy choices for their lifestyle, for both their physical health and their mental health. The third reason we believe this is important is because we're responding to community needs. We've asked the community what they would like to see here in Lewis County, and they've told us. They've told us through consistent polling. Jefferson Community College Center for Community Studies has been doing polling in Lewis County for over 15 years. They are certified by the American Association of Public Polling Research, and they are using the same scientific methods that you see on polls all across the United States. They're playing to the big leagues, and we've got a rank here in our community, which is pretty great. So, what have people said? We asked people, 2019 specifically, we asked them, do you support the development of more non-motorized trails for walking, hiking, and biking? 87% said yes. We asked people specifically, do you support the conversion of existing railroad beds or tracks into public recreational multi-use trails? 81% said yes, they do support that. We also asked if they support the development of more ATV and snowmobile trails for motorized vehicles. 74% said yes. We asked again in 2022, very specifically, even more specific than in 2019. We asked people, do you agree or disagree with this statement? I support county government efforts to convert existing railroad beds and tracks to multi-use public recreational trails, both motorized and non-motorized. That pretty much sums up the whole point. We asked folks across the board, didn't matter age, didn't matter income level, didn't matter whether you identify as conservative or liberal, people across the board said yes, they supported this initiative. So, why does the county feel this is the right time to invest in rails and trails? One, it's about stabilizing our tax base in the face of population loss and an aging population. We know that communities that have rails and trails see investment in economic development. We know that homes and communities that have trails increase in value. The National Association of Realtors, right on their website, it says Being next to a trail is likely to raise your property value 3 to 5%, and sometimes even as high as 15%. University of Cincinnati did a study specifically on the rail trail that was built in the Miami Valley in southern Ohio. They said for every foot that a home is close to the trail, it gains about $4 of value. Okay, so we know that this building of trail networks can work to help stabilize our economy. And for public health, there's plenty of studies, obviously, about getting outdoors and enjoying trails, but one study says 37% of trail users meet or exceed recommended weekly levels of physical activity. And there's another reason why we have confidence that this approach will work. So despite the fact that we have a reduction in population, and despite the fact that we've really had a long run of manufacturing jobs leaving, I think it's safe to say our manufacturing and dairy economy has not grown in the last 10 years. We've had some hits, but despite that, we have seen growth in the full taxable value in Lewis County. So this represents all properties across the whole county and what they're worth according to their assessment. We're at about $2.5 billion. So if we're losing manufacturing, we're losing population, and folks are getting older, how can you explain 30% growth in our property tax rates? The answer is 34% of properties in Lewis County are now owned by people who don't live here. They come here because they want to enjoy our recreational assets. They want to come here to enjoy what we get to enjoy every day, right? They come here to snowmobile, ATV, they want to get outside, they want to hunt, they want to enjoy time on the lakes. And so we can be confident that this strategy is working and that people are coming here and helping to stabilize their tax base. So let's talk about specifically the deal that's on the table and what the county is potentially looking to purchase from GBT. We're talking about 18.3 miles from Lowville to Carthage. We're talking about 10.9 miles from Lowville to Croydon. There's about a mile in the village of Lowville, and there's half a mile of sidings in the village of Lyons Falls. The total is about 31 miles away. The purchase price agreed to is $2.5 million. The county will retain all track and other track materials. And the reason that matters is because the steel itself has value, that's salvage value. So we estimate the salvage value of steel about $1.4 million. That will offset the purchase price. We will inherit all existing easements, and we're working with Carthage. Part of the deal, we have a choice to take the bridge that goes into West Carthage. We're working with West Carthage and the town of Champion and some engineers to figure out whether that's a good deal. So, how will this be funded? Probably the most important part for most of the folks that are here. How's the county going to pay for it? So, this is the philosophy that the Board of Legislators has been talking about in Lewis County for quite some time. I think it's generally agreed upon that we're all on the same page. This is how we want to manage the county finances. And I know 2 buckets sound silly, but stay with me for a second. You've got county operations, okay? That is our day-to-day operations, our buildings, our grounds, our employees, the services we provide, all of that. Those operations need to be conservative, efficient, and sustainable. They need to be funded, and they need to stay within the scope of current government. We don't want the scope of government to grow in Lewis County, and we haven't. We've had, in fact, we're down jobs, several county jobs, since I've been here. Okay? That part of county operations is funded through property taxes, sales tax, mortgage tax, and some of the operational revenue. We need to keep that conservative and sustainable so we keep tax rates conservative and sustainable, which we have done. The second piece, which not every community is lucky enough to have, but Lewis County is another bucket for capital and community projects. This is stuff that is one-time expenses. It's not ongoing expenses. It doesn't increase the scope of county government, but it's one-offs and things we can do to invest in our physical plant, we can invest in the community. We pay for our debt with this money. And this money comes from pilots, right? Pilots are only for a definitive amount of time. We don't want to use the windmill money to add 25 jobs. That doesn't make sense because it'll run out. The stimulus funds. We don't want to add jobs or build another county program that's going to expire when the money runs out. Same thing with excess fund balance and excess sales tax, right? This is where we can spend money without raising taxes, but we can still do good stuff for the community. And this is where we're looking to fund this project. So, as I mentioned before, the American Rescue Plan Fund will use $1.5 million of the $5.2 that the county received the American Rescue Plan funds to purchase the rail. The other $1 million will come from fund balance. Fund balance has changed quite a bit. I saw our former legislator Brian Moser come in. We've done a little bit better since you're on the board, right? We went up a little bit, so we're at $24 million at this point, which is enough. It's a good level that we can afford a little bit of flexibility. Sales tax has continued to come in strong. You can see the blue is what the county budgeted. That's what we rely upon to balance the budget. That would be that bucket number one, right? The green is what we received. And you can see every single year we have extra. That is what can go in bucket number two, right? In fact, if you look over the last 10 years, the county has collected an average of $1.5 million more in sales tax than we need to balance the budget. So we've got extra money, we've budgeted conservatively in a way that allows us to make these additional community investments. And we've also shared some of that with the municipalities. In addition to all the services that we provide, the municipalities this year, we did send $500,000 in excess sales tax towards our towns and villages for other projects that they think are important. And then pilot payments, as I mentioned, that's also part of this special projects bucket. We get about $1.7 million in pilot payments. So, going forward, we've got all of that money that can be used to develop these trails. But there's also, this is just a cursory research done by our planning department. There's 17 state and federal grants out there right now for rails to trail projects. The state and federal governments want to fund this. They want to put money into rural areas like Lewis County. And I think we'll be very successful taking advantage of some of those programs going forward. So, how will we proceed with development should the county move forward with this purchase? What will be the next steps? Well, we want to be very clear. This is not a one-size-fits-all approach. We've been saying multi-use from day one because multi-use is what it's going to be. Each section of trail, will probably be better suited for a different type of development. It's not going to be one size fits all. Also, we have to understand this is 30 miles of rail trail. The county is not going to develop this all in the next year. This is going to take us 10 years. We're buying an asset that we can develop over time, okay? And each project, each section that we develop is going to have to be treated as its own project. Every time the county is added to our trail network, we've had to have environmental reviews, we've had to have public input sessions. We'll continue to do that. The conversation about rails to trails in Lewis County is just beginning. It's going to take a lot of years, and we're going to have a lot more conversations about what communities want in regards to these assets. I think the important thing to remember is we're not going to commit tonight to this section will only be one thing and this section will only be for another. The only thing we're talking about at this point is this asset, this 30 miles of trails, better in the hands of the county government, where we can leverage it and turn it into a community resource, or is it better with GBT, who's very unlikely to do anything and it'll sit for another 30 years? That's what we're talking about. So, some of the details, folks, that's stuff I know folks are interested in. We're taking money off the tax rolls. Absolutely we are. And we get that people are sensitive to that. Last year, GBT paid $11,300 in total taxes. That's county, school, town, village. $11,300 in total taxes. However, they charged local municipalities, towns and villages, $12,500 in easements for water lines that go under the rail, for sewer lines that go under the rail, for stormwater lines that go under the rail. Okay? So, yes, money's coming off the tax rolls, but in terms of net value to taxpayers, that's actually a gain. What about crime on the trails? That's something that we've heard. We understand people are concerned concerned about that? Absolutely. I would ask folks, do some research, do your own research. There are literally dozens and dozens of studies about rails to trails and crime, trail on crime, or crime that's on trails. They all come to the same conclusion, and this is one of the most robust studies. It's like 371 rail trails across the United States, and they found that crime is no more likely to occur on a rail trail than it is to occur anyplace else. Lewis County already has one of the lowest crime rates in New York State. Okay, so you're no more in danger on the rail trail than you are on the sidewalk, than you are, Stewart's. Our crime rate is the same. So, just to quote the conclusion of the study, crime occurs on roads, parking lots, and shopping malls, office buildings, airports, and zoos. However, no one would rationally argue that we shouldn't build any of these because crime will occur there. The same should be true for rails, right? There's no evidence that suggests rails will promote more crime than already exists. So here's a concern that we hear often as well. There's conflicting views about what this asset can be used for. Can the rail be used for tourist locomotive line? Could the rail be used for future industrial development? Based on the current conditions, and we've got a couple photos here, that would be very difficult. To build a pedestrian bridge over this washout in New Bremen, the picture on the left, that's not too expensive. To build a full-scale locomotive bridge back to that spot is going to be pretty difficult, right? The same is true for this little washout that's in the town of Lowville. Now, this is just from us folks, walking, a few miles of trail. If you get into this thing, there are dozens and dozens of washouts and spots that require attention. Now, to turn into a pedestrian trail is easy. It's not very expensive. To turn into a full-scale, locomotive is going to be a lot of money and a lot of effort that, I'm not sure this can be asked. Other details, like I mentioned, so maybe I didn't mention this, but the $12,500 of easements per year, the county obviously is not going to charge the municipalities for that. We're not going to charge them once a month. If we were to acquire the rails, we would not charge the communities. There's some businesses in there as well, some farms that can pay to cross. We would obviously wipe those out. Another concern that we hear is liability risk to adjacent landowners. And Joan, I think, has a few words of county attorney to address that issue.
So I want to, first of all, let everybody know that the county has sufficient liability insurance for these trails. We've done our due diligence with our insurance carriers as well. It's not going to significantly add to the county's premiums. We've checked that out recently. It was also checked back in 2012 with our prior insurance carrier with the same conclusion. We already have trails in existence, and so the cost to the county is not going to be that significant without increase the tax, the county tax. But and also, I know there's concern about homeowner liability for people who have properties along the trails. New York State has one standard of care for property owners, and that is for you to have a reasonable standard of care for your visitors, for your invitees, and sometimes it can apply to trespassers. The only time that you would have to be concerned about that is if you had a dangerous condition, like if you had a dangerous known dog, and even trespassers who would go on your property, you have a reasonable responsibility to just post your property and say, warning, dangerous dog. If you have willful conduct, a trespasser may be able to assert a claim, bring a claim, doesn't mean that they're going to be successful. And then your only duty is to act reasonably and to give warnings of a dangerous condition you might have on your property. Now, if you went along the boundary to the rail property and you put in some tracks or something intentionally, well, then there might be some liability there. But if you act reasonably and just do due diligence for any known hazard on your property and post a sign that says hazard, if there's one that exists, then there really is no issue in terms of additional liability to a homeowner. And you can check that all with your insurance carriers as well, because they're going to understand that.
Thank you, Joe. As I mentioned, the estimated value of steel is about $1.4 million. So, next steps. We will have a resolution that will be weighed in and by the General Services Committee on November 15th. If that moves forward, if it's to move forward with that, we'll move forward to the November 22nd board meeting. So, public comments, we've talked enough. Time for us to do some listening. Just a few ground rules. We are asking folks to keep it 5 minutes per speaker. There's a bit of a crowd here tonight. We want everybody to have the opportunity to be heard. Okay. Questions, we ask that we're not going to get into a cross-talk dialogue here. Okay, with 12 people. We ask that you address your questions to the county manager, the legislators, and the county attorney, county treasurer may have responses, but let's try to keep it clear so that everyone can understand and listen to the question and the answers. We ask that any questions you have will be addressed at the end. So take your full 5 minutes, take as much time as you want, then after you're done, we'll try to address some of the questions. Of course, maintain a civil discourse, that goes without saying. And we thank you for your patience tonight and allowing us to get through some of our material. And with that, I believe we have a list here. So, first on the list, we have Lynn Stacy Montek. Come on, Lynn, there's a mic right there.
Good evening. I'm Lynn Stacy Leindecker. I'm a concerned landowner of the Lowville Carthage portion of the railroad, as well as a small business owner.
Can you turn on, please?
Good evening. Can you hear me now? Okay. I'm Lynn Stacy Leindecker. I'm a concerned landowner of the Lowville Carthage portion of the railroad, as well as a small business owner. This evening, I have spoken about the purchase and usage of the railroad for the trails by Lewis County. Where is the money coming from that is and what is the projected cost to clear the trails, remove the switches, fix the bridges and the trestles, possibly pulling up the rails and ties? What are the projected maintenance costs? You are asking us to swallow a lot of expense in a poor, shaky economy with high interest rates. You've asked us to currently fund a hospital addition, a new county highway garage, buying of a county building in Glenfield, renovation of Stowe Street offices, and the addition to the DMV election offices already this year. How much more as taxpayers can we afford? What is the ecological impact of removing the trails through the Lowville and Castleland swamps? Are you expected to run into more contaminated ground like you did building the county garage next to the railroad tracks? Who holds the insurance? And who is going to police these rails as a snowmobile and ATVs doing 100 miles an hour comes off that 14 miles of long straight trail and hits my tree? They're going to sue me because it was my tree. Do you think in these challenging times where diesel fuel is over $6 a gallon and gas prices keep climbing and the lack of truck drivers, we should reinstate our rails, to economically and greenly haul many cars of freight to our factories and carrying passengers back and forth? Also, I ask, please make sure that the board holds other meetings when most of the landowners are farmers. And right now they're milking or they're shoring and they can't come. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. So we'll do our best to hit a few of these because they're probably questions that other folks have as well. Sure, thank you. Thanks. Sorry. So, as we mentioned before, the expenses for maintenance and developing the trail over time were counting on, that second bucket of county finances, aside from property taxes, aside from what we count on to run day-to-day county operations. Additionally, we've got, as I mentioned, 17 state and federal grant sources that fund rails to trails projects. We're very confident that we should be able to access some of those funds. As I mentioned, each section of the project will have to have an environmental impact report, as we do now. Every time we add miles of trail, we have to do an environmental impact report. Insurance, I believe the quote that we got to add this was $400. Honestly, I'm not kidding you. The county already pays extraordinary umbrella insurance. We're very well covered for stuff like this.
That's not protecting us, landowners.
Well, the county attorney has already addressed that issue.
Yeah, that doesn't.
And then regarding economic conditions, I understand the burden of the taxpayer. I would just ask you to think, what do you think the burden of the taxpayer is going to look like? Let's try to envision this community in 10 years, 15 years. We're getting older, we're not getting younger, we're not retaining young families. How are we going to pay for all the existing infrastructure we have if we don't change something fundamental? We have to make an investment in this community so that people want to be here, okay? So if you think the taxes are bad now, maybe it's going to be. Okay, next we have Carol Murray, Town of Lowville.
Good evening. As a citizen of Lewis County, I've been following this controversial topic, rail to trail proposal. I have some concerns I'd like to share. I question the intent that you're basing your decisions. We live in a beautiful area. Why I moved here when my children were young. This is a beautiful county. Visitors, locals have a multitude of recreational activities already in place. In case you've forgotten, we have the Adirondacks, we have the Thousand Islands, Lake Ontario, right in our own backyard. But we also have Whetstone Gulf with gorgeous hiking trails, campsites, swimming area. Maple Ridge, they have hiking, walking trails over there. They provide activities. And the Tube Park in the wintertime brings people from outside the area in. The Tug Hill has hiking trails. Have you even been up in there? They've got beautiful hiking trails. The park above Barnes Corners has snowshoe races, which is a riot to go and watch. They have cross-country skiing. And our own DEC in Dadville, 75 acres of walking trails, 2 gorgeous ponds with fishing piers, picnic area, porta potties around, totally mowed and maintained, handicapped accessible with flat ground. How many of you have spent time on the trails at the DEC right in Dadville? I'd like to honestly have this proposed trail. Do you think it's going to trump everything else that we've got in our backyard already established? I feel this rail trail system may give us a black eye. As far as maintenance, can you picture the litter scattered up and down the trails? Where are these people going to go to the bathroom? You can't put porta potties there. You can't service them. I have a friend, not from Lowville, but they own acreage on both sides that they purchased for her 2 sons and her husband to hunt. So they hunt deer in the fall. In the wintertime, they run their dogs to hunt rabbits. God forbid there be a hunting accident. If that happens, whose shoulders is the liability and responsibility going to fall? The landowner or you people? A couple years ago, a homeless person pitched a tent under the Route 12 overpass. Nobody could make him leave. How many homeless people are going to be doing the same thing on the rail trail? And how many drug people will say, hey, here's a nice hiding place that we can do our thing. Recently, in Indiana, on a rail trail, A 5-year-old arrest of a man who killed 2 13-year-old girls out for a walk on the rail trail. You don't think that's on the minds of people? We know this is difficult to provide security on our ATV and snowmobile trails. This proposal may be putting our citizens at risk. How much better to spend the money in the communities that you people represent. Build a meeting house, build a community center. Our young people have no place to go. Where are they going to go after school? Where are they going to go on weekends? How about providing and reinvesting the money into your own communities to provide recreational, supervised, safe activities right in your own? I think it's time that you rethought. I challenge you to lose your narrow vision. I challenge you to think of the citizens that you're representing, the taxpayers. There's more interesting destinations in our backyard that exist. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Lori Holiday.
Hello, everybody. I'm from the Railway Historic Society in Crowley, New York, if nobody knows about us. We need all the rail. That rail is one of the last short lines left and is historically eligible to be on the National and Historical Registers. You say you support us, which you do. You give us about $1,000 to $2,000 every year in donations, and we are appreciative of that. You've given us a letter of support, yes, too. But in the newspaper article, it says you are cutting us off at Beaver Falls. We get Crowley to Beaver Falls, that's it. Our rolling stock is in here, in the Lowville engine house, right over here. It's the 47. It's the original diesel to the line. It operates. If you haven't seen the combine car that sits out here that's fully painted, that's our historic railway ride. It's one thing to read about something in a book, but isn't it better to feel it, to write it, to experience it? That is better teaching. We need to teach the kids of our history instead of just, we need to teach them. It needs to be alive in their spirit. This is what we're all about. So I don't understand why we are getting cut off. That makes no sense to me. And there's also rail bikes here in Lowville, out of the engine house. My boss will be up to speak too. Rail bikes bring a lot of business into the area too. With a railroad, you're in your spot. You don't go off on other people's land. You're predictable. You know the times when we are going. It's set. And we have been working at clearing the tracks. We have been progressing. And if it wasn't for COVID, we'd be a lot more farther along. So you say, each one of you, support us. Make that known. Keep the rail in place. From Crowley to Lowville, and Lowville to Carthage. And also, too, what about businesses coming in? Do you have rail? Oh, no, took them all up. Okay, see you, bye. Believe. Once that infrastructure is gone, it is gone forever. Think about these things. Stand up. Do the right thing. Protect history. Because like I said, once it's gone forever. And Ryan, could you tell me what a Class 3 railroad is?
We've got documentation from the New York City DOT back in 1991 that said that the railroad was designated as Class 3, which means that it's likely to be abandoned within 3 years. And that was in 1991.
That's not what a Class 3 railroad means. Class 3 means short line railroad. That's what it means. So again, preserve. There was 400 signatures presented to the county. Listen to the people you represent. our hearts are going out to each one of you. We are your tax-paying voting base. Protect the railroad. Keep the rails in place. Work with us. We've asked countless years, work with us. Help us. We've asked, get those blacktop off from the crossings. We've asked each of those towns year after year after year. We've been asking. We need that support. Rail is big business. Support us, please. And we know this is a hard decision for everybody involved and for our whole county. But stand up and protect history, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Okay, next we have Hamish Davey.
Hello, I'm Hamish Davey. I own the depot in Lowville and a member of the Historic Railroad Society. Have you considered that there's a historic designation impending for the railroad from Lowville to Croghan, and that the state of New York will have a say, and because it has been deemed historically eligible for the register, and that they will want to have a say in whether you can pull up the tracks or not.
Thank you. The county is aware of the Historical Society's effort to get some of the property that they own on the National Historic Registry. We've talked with Bernie Carr, and you guys are working with, so we're aware of that effort, yes. Okay. Next is Joanne Ditka.
Well, I'm here again. I was here in 2010, and I was here in 2012, and now it's 2022. Of course, I'm opposed to the purchase of the GVT rail lines. You showed us your surveys and how the people have spoken with the JCC surveys. Well, we gave you 400 signatures, which we got in 6 days, of property owners who are opposed to this purchase. We also have distributed over 200 signs in people's yards, and yet you think this is in the best interest of the county? When are you going to start listening to the taxpayers of the county instead of setting your own agenda of what you think people should have? Does that mean anything to any of you? My legislator, Ian Gilbert, told me the county would give us an easement to allow us to cross the railroad tracks onto our property. We've been crossing to the other side of the property for over 70 years. That's just my husband, not his family. This kind of statement is why landowners are skeptical of anything that the county proposes near their property. They also state that this is not going to cost taxpayers any money for this purchase or rehab. Do you all understand that COVID money and grant money is taxpayer money? Why are we not cutting property taxes and taking the tax off gas? I have some questions, but first I want to read a statement that I read to the legislators on, I think it was the June 7th meeting. Utilizing resources to enhance the quality of life. It is further declared of the legislature to encourage the use of agricultural land for recreational uses, which are consistent with the primary use of such land, while at the same time promoting additional tourism and employment opportunities and income for landowners in rural area, and enhancing quality of life of persons not otherwise able to obtain access to agricultural land for recreation. Really? Why is it that you think that our agricultural landowners need to share their property for recreation or with persons that don't own land? Would it be okay if we came in your backyards and walked, rode bikes, drove snowmobiles or four-wheelers? I guess that's my first question. I think probably not, and I don't think of one of you. Well, Larry lives near a trail, he tells me, but I'm not sure how close it is to his house. So I have some questions. It's been asked already tonight, what's the estimate cost of the proposed rails to trails per mile? It hasn't been answered. How do you plan to sustain it? How much money do you think this trail will generate for county taxpayers?
0.
Have you done a study? How do you plan to protect landowners from trespassing, litter, property damage, and human waste? You now have opened up a homeless warming center. Where do you think these homeless people are going to go after that closes? The village park has syringes all over where our kids play. There are homeless camping out under a bridge. This is a perfect place for them to be, and you're making it possible. What law enforcement is going to police the trail? You had to hire security because it's so taxed up on the hill with the sheriff's department, he doesn't have enough manpower. How are you going to police these trails for us? Are you going to assure that we won't get sued if someone crosses onto our property? We have to go to the trouble of posting our property, warning people when they get on there, oh, you don't belong here, which they already know. So that's our responsibility. That's what you're putting on taxpayers' shoulders. And when you hold a meeting at 6 o'clock in the evening, half the farmers that are impacted by this are in their barn milking cows. You maybe ought to think about them for a chance. So, if you answer any of my questions, you're spending $2.5 million and you have no idea how much this will cost. It is your fiduciary responsibility to know all these answers to my questions before you spend taxpayer dollars. You have to stop thinking that you know what's best for us.
Okay, we'll do our best to hit some of those rates.
Thank you.
So, estimated costs? No, we don't have an exact estimated cost. There's 30 miles of rail trail, okay? We're working with engineers to get an idea of the bridges and culverts that are involved. We are involved in that process. The county has an in-house trail building crew of 12 people that work for us all summer. We are hopeful that that crew will perform a lot of the work. They're already baked into the budget. They're already a crew that we have on hand. And right now we have to depend on cooperation of landowners to extend our trail network. With this, we'll be able to expand the trail network on property that we own, and we can retain for the long run. So I think a lot of the building costs are going to be translated from the trail work that we already do right now, right? So we're not thinking it's going to be entirely new costs. Additionally, these projects, these rails to trail grants are out there, they're funded all the time. The project I talked about earlier, the Sarah Lake project, that's all state funded. So yes, I know, state money is our money too, but it's not coming out of your local property taxes. Let's see.
How much
Police
is it
and
going to
security.
generate for we as taxpayers?
There's lots of studies about the economic impact of rail to trails, but we see a general trend of sales tax growth. I mean, we have seen it through the development of our outdoor assets in Lewis County. We have had very robust sales tax receipts in Lewis County, and that is largely driven by the tourism that we have. And then the police issue, the county board of legislators, the county manager is not, the power or task with public safety. That's on the sheriff. If there's concerns about the way the hill is being patrolled, that's, you need to take that up with him. Okay. Next we have Mike Jacob.
Good evening. I'm here in opposition of the rails to trails. Some of the reasons why she said and some of the reasons why everyone else is going to say. But this, just watching what you put up for your PowerPoint, growth, health. 30 miles of trail is not going to do anything for growth and health. If you turn it into an ATV snowmobile trail, any section of it, we already have that tourism here. You're not going to add any more tourism. They're already here. On that, second homes. That's where this is driving up our property taxes, the second homes for all the trails that we have here. I mountain bike, I hike, I ski. There are hundreds of trails all around the county. I go explore different ones. We don't need another section of trail to drive the cost up of everything else. What we do need, when you talk about growth, health, we need a community center. A community center is going to bring people in. Tourism, with our plan for the community center, softball, baseball tournaments, soccer tournaments, all these types of tournaments, that's going to bring new tourism in. You're not going to have elderly, you're not going to have disabled, you're not going to have young children walking these trails to get their fitness in. A trail system will be set up with the community center to use those trails. There's people going to be around there, there's people that can train. A community center is going to be more beneficial. I think you guys need to get behind the community center and put your money towards that versus spending $2.5 million on 30 miles of trail that is not going to get that much use, and you're intending to use it for bicycling, walking, and we all know it's going to turn into something else. No one's going to want to use that. Let's put our focus on community first, not worry about the tourism that comes in. That tourism will come in through other things other than the snowmobiling and ATVing that's already here. So hopefully we can just put our money behind something that's going to be beneficial, not cost us a lot of money down the road, where the community center would help. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. I'm glad I asked. Eric Schwarzenberger.
Looking ahead into the near, middle, and distant futures of Lewis County are several items to consider. Energy and fuel prices will probably continue to rise. The most efficient way to move freight is by railroad. Railroads are anywhere from 10 to 200 times more efficient than trucks. Why are we in Lewis County not using the most fuel-efficient method of moving freight? The pollution problem. Just this last spring, the New York State Legislature considered banning the installation of wood-burning stoves in new home construction to help control pollution. How soon will the recreational use of internal combustion engines also be restricted or banned? Possibly, will trucks be restricted in favor of more efficient methods? Trains are 9 times less energy Trains use 9 times less energy per ton kilometer than trucks and are at least 4 times more fuel efficient. Trains emit 60 to 70% less greenhouse gases than trucks do. Should we remove the rails now? What if the state or federal government restricts the movement of freight by highway in the future for pollution restrictions? The cost of reinstalling tracks would be more than this county is worth. What happens to our county then? My most immediate concern about replacing the rails with ATV trails is the close proximity of the Beaver River School to a possible ATV trail. What all forms of extracurricular activity will those students be exposed to along that unmonitored stretch of woods? The money that this county may receive is to be used for improvements to the infrastructure, not its removal, especially when its removal will lead to more fuel consumption and pollution production. Several ideas of possible projects may include: 1, opening up the railroad right-of-way for trolley and rail car use. This would be terrific for fall foliage tours, especially the stretches from Lyons Falls to Boonville and between Lowville and Grogan. 2, purchase land along the tracks to Lyons Falls to install a parking lot for commuters headed to Boonville or Utica to park their cars and board a train. 3, work with Jefferson County to repair the bridge over the Black River at Carthage so that full-weight freight cars can access Castor Lane and Lowville. 4, repair the washed-out fill between New Bremen and Beaver Falls. Recreation is important to this county. Providing trolley and rail bike rides would bring in a slightly different recreationists than those who prefer ATVs, but the two types should complement each other and keep our hotels and restaurants busy. Trolley and rail bike routes could be provided with porta-johns at key locations so that the riders don't have to go along the right-of-way or on private property. Perhaps fishermen could charter trolley rides to some of the railroad bridges to try their luck there. Again, porta-johns could be appropriately placed for their use. Just this past summer and fall, the railroad between Utica and Tupper Lake was reopened to trains. Will whoever spent the $17 million to make that possible be interested in occasionally running that train from Utica to Lyons Falls? The Boondocks restaurant would be a great destination for that train. Possible freight loads may include road salt. We have at least 3 highway departments that are adjacent to the tracks. Why are we beating our roads to death hauling in salt when we can bring it by rail? Wood bound for Fort Drum could be weighed and transferred to rail at Beaver Falls, Lowville, and Castor Lane. Pulpwood headed south and east from Lewis County could be weighed and transferred to rail at Lyons Falls. How much safer would our highways be if both gasoline and diesel fuel was brought in by rail instead of highway? Would 3B Lumber of Boonville be in business if it couldn't send its poles out by rail? Another concern is the death rate of ATV trail users in this county. I've heard that 10 so far this calendar year. Is that acceptable? Do we check off these deaths as some sort of suicide? What is this county's responsibility in these deaths? Should we be concerned? Should we care?
Thank you, Eric. Okay, next we have Ron Trottier.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ron Trottier. I'm the CEO, head of Railstar Corporation. And I'm here tonight to just clarify a couple of things that I've heard so far quickly. The concept of Class 3 track is merely the degree of suitability for traffic at a certain speed. In Class 3 traffic can go 50 miles an hour. We are operators. I have made a large investment with the thought of operating these rail bikes within Jefferson and Lewis County predominantly. I have enough to develop operations elsewhere, but I would much rather see them home-based. The rail bikes on a national basis are proving their worth from a tourism point of view and from an economic point of view for the operators. It's no secret the Adirondack Scenic has started the rail bikes in their territory with much success. It brings a lot of people that wouldn't normally come to your area, and it's partially because of advertising and the social media type of situations. So it's good recreational business for all the communities. And my intent from the very beginning was to form a nucleus of operation at Carthage and Lowville. Railstar is a property owner in the village of Lowville, and it's a property owner in the village of Carthage. And we would like to enhance both these properties as terminal points. The rails to trail concept of just tearing up all the rails just seems to throw, from my perspective, some confusion at me quite extensively. We've all been concerned and held back in the last 2 years from making further investments. But needless to say, starting before 2 years ago and during this period, we have invested almost $750,000 in rail bikes, small locomotives, other small equipment that can operate well on these seldom used tracks and perform a tourism draw, so to speak. And it's something that we would dearly like to continue on. However, if the rails are torn up immediately, I guess that puts an end to that program, and from an economic point of view, we'll have to seek a further involvement elsewhere. The cost studies that you've done, I've noticed you did put a cost to recover the rail, the steel. If you get today's current price, including the labor to recover it, it might not yield quite that much. But you've also said nothing about the ties. The state DEC, the minute you tear up a railroad, you have to remove all the ties and ship them out of state, perhaps to Ohio, where they're disposed of properly. There's very few places in the Northeast where you can dispose of them. That is very expensive and would chew up a good deal of that profit. But the rail itself, actually being Class 3, is excellent rail suited for lighter duty. But you can run locomotives at 25 to 40 miles an hour on that track. But lighter, both self-contained locomotives, so to speak, that have passenger compartments, and the rail bikes, they weigh 600 pounds apiece. So you put 4 people on, and you still, depending on the weight, of course, you're considered a very light load. These rails, as they exist, are rather isolated. They wouldn't seem to appeal to much to a walking crew, nor the bicycles. And to make them suitable for bicycles, it seems like it would take quite a bit of time and other efforts of earthworks. So I would just hope that there's going to be some suitable review period where we perhaps could still incorporate our future plans into enhancing both Lowville and Jefferson counties' recreational tourism. So that's about all I have to say tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Ryan, can you just talk a little before that we're not really counting on that money? It's just a part that was thrown out there. My husband did some calculations last night, and he said it's probably not much more either.
So, back of the envelope math, this is how we are figuring, the steel has some salvage value, right? So whether it's $1.4 million, we're not exactly sure, right? That's just back of the envelope math based on the weight of each section, okay? But yeah, I mean, the cost of getting it out, it very well could be a wash. But there's some sections that pulling that rail is going to be fairly easy to do, and the scrap value of steel, should have some value to the county. So. Next we have Mark Day.
Good evening. I'm here tonight speaking in opposition to our county spending $2.5 million taxpayer dollars on land that is assessed for about 20% of that amount. We live in a rural area that is certainly not lacking in nature or recreational trails. Our county was allotted this money through the American Rescue Plan in order to help people recover from the severe negative impact that we all suffered. I'm not sure how spending nearly all that money to acquire a 30-mile section of trail that travels through mostly farmland and swamps helps any of us at all. This is simply wasteful spending of tax dollars when they could be used to actually help people during this time of need. Most county governments are using these funds on areas of actual need and projects that will increase in spending and have no actual, But according to the ARPA funding guidelines, projects must fit into one of the following categories: responding to public health and negative impacts of the pandemic, providing premium pay to essential workers, provide government services to the extent of revenue lost due to the pandemic, and making necessary investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. How does this fit into any of those categories? Mr. Gilbert answered a question on social media with the following answer, and I quote, "I don't expect there will be any direct revenue from trails, but that isn't the point of them." And so it is apparently not about lost revenue due to the pandemic, although the final rule states that the SLFRF funding must fit into one of those general categories. And it needs to respond directly to the impact of the pandemic. I live less than 4 miles outside the village of Lowville, and I only have access to one broadband internet that comes from an Akwesasne reservation that's 3 hours away. Do you think people will move to an area that can't provide good high-speed internet services to locations that are 4 miles from the county seat? What businesses do you anticipate seeing any increased amount of economic activity, which would provide some tax revenue as a result of this proposed trail? How is a trail that's going to take 10 to 15 years to complete help any of us recover from our current economic hardships that we've suffered? What is the projected long-term cost of getting this proposed trail repurposed from a railroad into a recreational trail? The bridges over the Black River and the Black River Flats are in horrible condition. Replacing or repairing them would probably cost millions alone, even for four-wheelers to go across. Pretty much everyone is struggling with inflation in our economy right now, and we have to prioritize our wants and needs. I think this trail is clearly a want, and what we need to do is use it somewhere where we have actual need. Thank you for your time, and I, along with many others, look forward to getting some of these questions answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I'll do my best to. Sure. Eric's going to handle the American Rescue Plan question.
I'm going to be a little generic on the ARPA funds, but I can tell you, and just a little background, I've been working with state and federal funding for many, many years. This is about the most open-ended funding I've seen in all those years. There is no requirement, in essence, on what we spend those funds for. So I appreciate the information you researched, but I can tell you from all the information that we have and every other county and municipality in our state, there is no strict requirements on how funds are used. Lewis County, with the county managers and legislative leadership, developed a plan before just about any other community I'm aware of. in the middle of 2021 on how we would be spending those funds. We have stuck to those plans. It was about a 6-point effort, including downtown revitalization, childcare, workforce development, recreational assets, and broadband. So just a little clarification on that information.
Thanks, Eric. Broadband specifically between fund balance dollars. The county's put in $1 million of local taxpayer dollars into broadband. We've leveraged $2 million of American Rescue Plan funds for broadband, and we've landed another $1.5 million of grants. So we are doing more objectively than any community in our area to support broadband growth. And that's just measurably true. It's on the way. We're working on it. There's going to be a ribbon cutting next week, in fact, for 2 broadband projects that just launched, one in Lionsdale, one in the town of Diana. We've got an agreement with Charter Spectrum to cover another 300 homes. That is waiting on National Grid pole permits. And then we have an additional project that's going to cover the Denmark, Copenhagen area, and we're working with some partners to get access to the towers in that area, the WPBS and WTI towers, in order to project broadband from that. So the county has been more aggressive on broadband really than anyone else in the area. Regarding bridges, Mark, you asked a question about the bridges. Yeah, the bridges for locomotives are in bad shape, but for pedestrian traffic,
Have you walked across those bridges?
No.
Oh.
You gotta know, an engineering firm has walked across. Yes. And so,
they're really careful doing it. I watched
sure, well, we're not gonna put them on how they are now. We build a new deck for them, of course. But yeah, they're not gonna carry a locomotive, but they could carry, someone who needs to be a person on a bicycle, yes. So. All right, next we have Marcus Bush. Okay. Gary Ruskowski.
I came here tonight to oppose what you people want to do. I think it's a poor use of money. If you got too much money, why don't you give it back to the taxpayers? It's not your money, it's taxpayers' money. There was a lot of people upset out there when you give over $400,000 to the county employees just to showing up to work. That ain't right. Give it back to the taxpayers. When I was a legislator almost 20 years ago, we talked about civil corporate parks 20 years ago. Every time we talked about it, we couldn't spend the money because we needed all the county employees had to have a raise. And as the chairman was there at the same time I was, and they had meetings to get rid of legislators that wanted to help develop Lewis County so our kids didn't have to leave. Our greatest export for 20, 30 years or longer has been our children because they don't have good paying jobs in Lewis County. You want to build this railroad in? What kind of jobs is it going to create? Servant jobs? Would you take those jobs? All of them would be seasonal. That's what'll happen. These people come. We have a bed and breakfast. We have people come. You heard the manager. It's the sheriff's problem. But when they don't behave, well, it isn't his problem. It's all his problem. This last year, we carried 7 people out of this county in bags in the wintertime, in plastic bags. They got killed. People don't behave. We had people stay at our bed and breakfast, came off the hill, and they said, we're leaving. We're out of here. They're nuts up there, the way they're driving. And there's nobody up there that stops anybody. They just go. And they know nothing's going to happen to anybody. Almost nobody gets a ticket. Nowadays, you got this no bail deal going on. No matter what you do, they just let you go as soon as they arraign you. I just don't see the payback for this type of thing for Lewis County. We need to put water and sewer in the ground. You go down to the city of Watertown, every street you go out, I don't care which street you go out in the city of Watertown, There's fire hydrants and sewer in the ground already. And there's businesses on every single street going out of Watertown because the water and sewer's already in the ground. The only place we got water and sewer in Lewis County now is when you go to number 4 road. That's why those stores are out there and those businesses, that's the only reason they're out there. When I was a legislator, that's when Walmart wanted to come, Kmart wanted to come to Lewis County. We don't need them, we got enough. We already got it. We got the PNC, we got Ames, we don't need those kind of things. Next thing you know, PNC went bankrupt, Ames went bankrupt, and everybody got in a panic. Larry was there, he knows. Heck, you had to travel out of Lewis County by underwear. That was what everybody was a big laugh about it. And why did it finally change? Because the city of Lowville, the village of Lowville, and the town of Lowville finally gave them water and sewer. That's the only reason that Walmart's out there, because they finally got water and sewer. Simple as that. You've got to have water and sewer in the ground. You got to control he who controls water and sewer controls growth. That's a fact of life. I don't care where you travel. That's the way it is. If you want Lewis County to move into the future, you'll put water and sewer in the ground. You guys just authorized $50 million for all these buildings for the county. Fine. If you thought it was important, but how come you can't find the money for water and sewer at the same time? 20 years ago we talked about it and still talking about it, still dreaming about it. If you want to change Lewis County, you got to put water and sewer in the ground. Simple as that. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Next is Brian Murphy.
You all know me well enough, I can't speak from here. So first I want to ask you, is Ryan and everyone else, so basically everyone that spoke here so far tonight has covered anything that I would have talked about. So I want to ask you if I could do this a little different and just ask you, Ryan, directed questions to you, maybe 3-4 questions. Is that okay? All right. So first of all, I want to thank all of you for allowing the public to come here and voice their opinions. All right. For all of you that worked with me, you know that I've worked with you. Some of you, we had disagreements. I completely respect the positions that you're sitting up there, because I sat there with this at one time, most of this. For those of you that don't know, I'm Brian Mosier, former District 4 legislator that I let go and Ian took my place. So here in my hand, okay, this here is the original purchase agreement, the GVT, which was actually Mohawk Adirondack Transportation when they took the rails over from Conrail, okay? Talk to the Surface Transportation Board today. First of all, the rails have to be abandoned, okay? Nothing can be done until the Surface Transportation Board of the United States federal government gets an application from GVT and asks for an abandonment, okay? It's a $4,000 cost to get this. So Eric, we talked about this, we went through this talk with GVT when I was there with you. The push then was that we wanted to keep the rails, because if there's ever a possibility of the rails coming back, if we had control of the rails, it made it easier to do that. There was never any talk about tearing up the rails, making it a trail. Well, I take that back. There was a little bit to make it a joint thing, and then that way the county had the control of it in case there was ever an opportunity to bring the rail system back. That's the talks we had. The talks with GVT fell through, and I don't know the full scope of what the reasoning was, but there was a lot involved with doing the abandonment, okay? So with that being said, the abandonment is a true the rails have to be unused for commercial use for 2 years, and then they can file for the abandonment okay? That has not been done yet, because this is the last paperwork that the federal government has received from GVT is when it was purchased. Right here. I have the copies in my hand. Class 3 rail, yes, the gentleman Lori also, up to 30 miles an hour for trails. There's sections that are class 1 also. So my questions to all of is, all right, you say that the steel, there's going to be a net benefit to that. You have no clue how much it's going to cost you to take out the railroad ties. DEC says they have to be taken out. They can be ground up on site and delivered to a certified incinerator, which would be Re-Energy. Guess what's happened to Re-Energy, seeing how our great state of New York elected Kathy Hochul? Guess what's going to happen to Re-Energy? Because this great state doesn't recognize biomass as a renewable energy. So we can thank the 9 counties throughout New York State, the big cities, for that. Gonna throw a little politics in. So with that being said, I talked to an individual that did the grinding of the tiles, or the railroad ties up to Tupper Lake last summer. I'm involved with that type of business. So the cost that I was told for that is $325 an hour to grind up these creosote treated ties, okay? Re-Energy will pay a certain amount per tonnage for them, but you're gonna have to do it within the next 7 months, because guess what? Re-Energy's not gonna take that. So you are left with the cost now to take them tiles. There's only 2 certified places that you can take them to that can grind them up and sell the chips. Otherwise, you've got to take them to landfill. I do believe Rodman's an approved one, I was told, Waterloo out to Seneca Falls, and I think there's one other one in Clinton County. They will only take a certain amount of them at one time. So it's going to be a long process. So, got off track now. I just, it seems to me that, are you sure? I don't want to cut anyone else short, so. It just seems to me that we are jumping ahead of the ahead of the horse with the cart here. You have no idea what the total cost of this is going to be. You're saying you don't know exact uses of this. Well, that would be like me going out and buying a truck or buying 10 tractor trailers and saying, well, I really have no idea what I'm going to haul with it. You're doing the same thing. This legislator, even from before me, Gary and them, every department has been set up with their financing in the budgeting to operate like a business. So we charge different departments for different services they provide for each other. So if we're going to operate our county like a business, then let's do it. It just seems to me that you've got this glutton of money for the COVID relief funding. It's just burning a hole in your pockets. And I would agree with some of these other individuals. Eric, if there's no determined factor that determines how you get this funding, why is it we aren't spending extra money instead of bonding for your new buildings, which all these buildings, we could have built a new building 4 years ago for about 1/3 of the cost of what you are with all the projects that are going on now. But we all know how that went. You got infrastructure. Give more to the towns. You gave, $500,000? I didn't have a pen, so if I'm off on the numbers, forgive me, correct me. You had $500,000 you distributed to the towns. You gave, what was the total cost of all the raises that you gave the employees? What was the total cost? Well, the retention money.
$464,000.
Okay, so 400, so there's $1 million, okay? So the employees get $500,000, the towns and villages get $500,000 approximately, and then the rest of the the taxpayers benefit nothing from it. There's ways that you guys could have refunded. I understand the fact that we don't want to cut taxes because at some time the revenues are going to drop and it's going to increase. I get that. And we've always talked about that as a legislative group, and I'm sure Gary and them did also. But there's a way to rebate that money that you keep the tax rate the same and cut everyone a rebate check because the state does it to us every year. So, I mean, I I just think that there could have been a little more outward thinking of this. I mean, and I understand the seat you guys sit in. You guys are getting a hell of a lot more information than what we get in the public that you're making your decisions off. If it was me sitting in Ian's spot, I mean, everyone knows where I would have stood anyway. So I mean, I guess that's it. So I appreciate your time, and thank you.
Thanks, John. So one point that Brian made that is worth repeating, the deal that we have set up with GBT is contingent upon approval from the Surface Transportation Board. So that is accurate, yes. Okay, Stephen Norris is next.
Good evening. I'd like to speak in opposition to this. First, I have a question for each and every one that sits on the stage. How many of you people have actually been on the rail beds and know anything about them other than an aerial photo? All the way to Carthage?
Not in one trip, but in several trips. I've got relatives that own land on both sides of the trail.
Okay, well, I own land on both sides of the trails. I have for 50 plus years. The area that I'm most familiar with is from Lowville to Pasture. And most of the trail bed down through there is approximately 10 to 12 foot wide on top. And a lot of it has a 20-foot drop off the side. And I wonder what you're thinking about a liability issue there. I don't care if it's people walking, riding a bicycle, four-wheelers or snowmobiles or what. Guys on the hill are getting killed on the level. They run off in that, and the question was brought up to the county attorney about the liability issue, and I don't think it was really answered. The landowner has the liability. If we do everything we're supposed to do, we're still going to have to pay and fight it.
No.
Oh, I'm afraid so. Well, you may not think so, but I've been a landowner for a long time.
You have to trespass when you would be on the property. If you have a hazardous condition.
What do you determine as a hazardous
Let me
position?
explain, okay? If you have a hazardous condition, a known hazardous condition, and you have known trespassers, repeated trespassers, then you will have to post your property to warn them of that hazardous condition. That doesn't mean that you would then be liable for anything that happens to that trespasser, if that person trespasses.
What do you deem as a hazardous condition? Do you deem a hole in the ground that some idiot is going to walk out there and fall in and break a leg or break his neck or break a back?
Yeah. That doesn't really apply.
That you have to create the hazard.
Yeah.
It's not a natural disaster. It's something you're man-made creating.
So, again, if you have a known hazardous condition on your property, if your visitors come to your property and you have a known hazardous condition, your friends come over and you let them all be in the backyard and you dig a big hole and cover it over it with something, you're liable to that.
I'm not talking about a hole you dig. I don't know if you're familiar with the woodland or anything.
You gave me an example of there being
Right.
a hole on your property.
There can be holes in the woods, whatever.
Well, yeah, so
not
that's
man-made.
that's just the property, the way it is. That's
Exactly.
not your known condition that you caused.
And that's our liability if you got somebody trespassing.
I beg to differ. I don't think for a trespasser that would be the case.
Okay.
Did you have another question?
No, because it won't get answered.
Hey, Steve, you have a minute. Brian, can I just make one comment, Joe? Okay. So I understand what you're saying in legal terms, but I'm going to give you an instance at my workplace. All right, we travel on roads, logging roads that are ATV snowmobile use also. All right. An instance was a snowmobiler that was traveling at a high speed, hit one of our log trucks head on and was killed. Log truck driver was found not to be liable. Guess how many people they sued? So, I mean, and I understand in your law books it says that if you do such and such, you aren't liable. But if you get the right attorney, they can sue anyone for anything that they want.
Exactly.
So, listen, the truck driver got sued who wasn't in the wrong. The snowmobile, they agreed, said it was at high speed. The landowner got sued.
Yeah.
The land management company called Mopus got sued. And International Paper got sued because the pulpwood was going to their mill. So I think that you're steering people in the wrong way when you're saying that if you do everything right, you're not liable. You as an attorney should know that that's not what
being liable and potentially being sued, because in your own example, the truck company was found not to be liable.
But they were still sued.
So we're talking about liability. Hold on, we're talking about
You got somebody get
liability.
killed in our truck and they sued 7 people, and that's what Brian's talking about. And we got signs up, they can see reflector signs.
Okay, so
Yeah,
again,
they got money from everybody.
you're talking about liability.
Lawyers, all they do is advertise to sue people. That's all they do.
Okay, folks, we're going to get back to the original rules here that we talked about. We're going to keep it 5 minutes this week. If you want to speak, please sign up and we'll address questions at the end of every speaker. All right, next we have Mikey.
Thank you. Thank you, folks. I feel like I'm the halftime show because, unlike all the other speakers, I'm in favor of the project. I sit on a number of boards, as many people know. One of the biggest problems we have is recruiting people to come to Lewis County. And in order to get people here in the new day and age, it's not always about the money, it's about the quality of life. When we talk about professionals that we need at places like the hospital, school, and other places, the managers, who are the ones who come and fill the jobs that we want our children and others to have, are looking for certain things. And a trail system is not a bad idea. I also sit on the BOCES board. We've been very fortunate. For years, we've fought to add programs to our programs here in Lewis County because we're so much smaller than Jefferson County. And this year, we finally got a heavy equipment program. And it's housed at the JCC program, at the building. And it happens to sit next to the trail. This project would provide an excellent opportunity for our students to hone their skills for the future. It is an opportunity that should not be passed up by this community. If we don't invest in ourselves, we can't expect others to come here and invest in us. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Next we have Alan Scowen.
I'll be brief. My name's Al Scowen from Port Lighting. I know quite a few of the people on the board. And Ryan mentioned at the beginning that our children are leaving the county. You know what? He is probably right. But when I look at the people here, and some of the people on the board, including myself, we got third, fourth, and fifth generation people in this audience. And they raise children anywhere from one child to probably 15 to 18 children per family. And they provided for those people. And the way they provided for those people is that we had an industrial business and a base in this county. And that industrial base now is deteriorating dramatically. We have agricultural dying, and it's too bad. We had the forest industry, which I'm part of and have been for 40 years. Our forest industry is going out the door. We've lost Lions Falls, we lost Beaver Falls, we've lost up here at Champion and other industries, Lionsdale. Well, luckily we got Burroughs Paper, which is now Twin Rivers, still running. But we also are losing other industrial bases that we really desperately need. And the money of $2.5 million, and it's coming from excess sales tax. I happen to be a mayor in the village of Port Lyden for 14 years. And we always tried to run our budget as close as we could because we knew what the people's tax bases were. And if you've got excess sales tax, and now also with this extra COVID funding that was given to us as a great gift from the people in Washington, why don't we use this money to drive home and get the industrial base back into this county, which will, number one, protect our kids from going someplace east of Jesus or whatever you want to call it for a job. We could do it here. And that's my biggest point. Let's use the funding that, if it's excess sales tax, either figure out how not to have so much, or maybe give it back to the, the people who worked here hard for their livelihood for years and are on a fixed income on Social Security, just barely making it, but they're the first people come the first day in January after they get their taxes, bring their pennies, nickels, and dimes to pay their taxes and go out probably without some heat or food. My point is, let's take care of us here, and the recreational industry is coming in. It'll come in anyways, but let's support the people here. Thanks a lot and have a good night.
Thanks, Alan. Next we have Jessica Clemens.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone to discuss the topic tonight. I think this is a really smart investment for the people who live in this community. Tourism is great, bringing other people is terrific, but I think this is really important for the people who live and work and play in Lewis County. I don't live too far from rail in New Bremen, and in the area that I live in, I run, I bike, I ski, I see people walking on River Road 812, pushing carriages, and it's really dangerous. Even running on 812, I can't tell you how many times I've been coal dusted. It's just about every week when I'm out and about. And I think something like this would be really important for families with small kids, for people that have mobility issues, and it could be a safe space. So I know that you're not talking about who's using the trails and when, but I hope that you'll also emphasize pedestrians and people who are using non-motorized transportation choices. I think that's really important. And I'm one of the people who moved to Lewis County with my family a few years ago. And I think this is a really great community that we can all work towards and have some mixed uses and some really great opportunities to connect communities and to have some exciting things to attract neighbors, friends and family, and people that might want to consider bringing their families to Lewis County, and also retaining their families so our kids can stay here and live with us. So thanks for hearing me, and that's all I have for today. Thanks.
Thank you, Jessica. Next, we have Marty McDowell.
Thank you. My questions have been answered.
Thank you, Marty. Next, we have Brian Reed.
Hello, my name's Brian Reed. The reason I'm been opposed to this is because this trail goes through the middle of my barnyard, basically, and it will severely impact the way I can do business. There's 10 or 12 farms that are active on this rail line, and your kind of recreation and activities is not going to coexist with what a working farm has to do. Nobody has addressed that. I told you before, just the line from Lowville to Deer River, we put $11.7 million into the economy last year with your multiplier factor, your fuzzy math you use with your recreation of $20.2 million. If it would severely impact even one of them, you're going to lose more revenue there than you are ever going to gain with this. I looked into buying the railroad, and when you were throwing out that $500,000 number there, us as landowners, we could buy that. But it was going to cost us $1.8 million to remove the ties, and by the time you get a contractor to come remove the rails, you are going to lose $1 million, even with the scrap prices what they are now. So your envelope math might not work out there. And we hear about the quality of life for everyone. There's, I don't know, how many people live next to the railroad that their quality of life will be impacted, but that's okay. It seems to be fine in your eyes. Is there going to be money set aside for these farmers that lose money on this project? Because if I can't graze cows, that's about $100,000 a year for me. So when you got some little old lady with her puppy out there that doesn't want to put it on a leash, and it runs across my pasture, makes my cows run, with ag and market laws, I can shoot that dog. I don't want to shoot that dog, but I can. And I will. There's no address. You live on this dream that everything is sunshine and rainbows. That's not the way it is out there in the real world. There's people on my land all the while. There is a chunk of county land in the middle of my farm, which I had kids 2 weeks ago set up their deer blinds on the county land. Well, you're not on the county land. Well, I thought I could hunt here. You can hunt in these little pine trees. Your blinds are on my land. Well, where are you going to shoot the deer? Well, out there in those fields. Do you read the posted signs? Well, I didn't think you'd care. And that's the kind of people that we run into out there. What are you going to do to address that? The sheriff's not, you can't patrol the trails you have now. The DEC, are they going to patrol the trails? State troopers? What are you going to do for law enforcement? I'd like an answer to that.
We'll address questions if you finish your statement. We can address questions.
I want an answer now.
Please finish. Last time we went off
My
script.
statement is done. You can answer that question.
Sure. So, As I mentioned before, law enforcement is responsible with the sheriff of the county. I think there's 10 legislators here that would love to see more federal enforcement in Lewis County. I am a little confused.
I don't mean your trolls that you got up there now and just wave there. I mean real action.
Yeah, I'm confused as to why the Board of Legislators continue to get pinned down from the public on public safety questions when the sheriff is independently elected. He has resources, you should be asking him those questions.
Excuse me, I did ask the sheriff that, and he said he hasn't had a new deputy since 2012. You guys are not funding him, is what I was told. So I did talk to him and asked him how he was going to patrol this property, this rail trail. And he said that he does not have enough deputies. He has 2 deputies and 1 sergeant on at night. All he has at night. Thank you.
Next we have Vicki Traeger.
I would just like to say that my husband and I had a chance to go to Strasburg, Pennsylvania, and while we were there, they have a beautiful museum set up for the railway there, and they have rail rides, and they have different cars that you can see. It's much like a smaller scale. What we have in Krogan, theirs is huge. We could do something like that, and I think people would donate to that. And I think that that would be a great draw. If you're looking to get people here, they're packed down there every weekend with tourists coming in. I think the rail trail is a bad idea. I live near, our land is, the rail goes right through it. We don't mind the trains, they're kind of on time. But I do mind people walking through my property. And I consider it our property because when the railroad took over and took the property through eminent domain, we were told that if they ever went defunct, the property would be given back to the landowners. Right now, we harvest trees alongside the railroad tracks. If a tree falls on the tracks, we have a number we can call to tell them not to send a train because we have to clear the track. What's going to happen if a tree falls? Who are we going to call? Who are we going to call? And we also use it for hay. We get hay along the tracks. How are we going to do that if it's a rail trail? It doesn't make any sense to me. We're going to be devoid of using the land that right now we can use. And it's going to be covered in garbage, just the way the snowmobile trails are. This is not for people's health. How is it healthy to ride a snowmobile or an ATV from bar to bar to avoid the police? And they know they can avoid the police because, like you say, there is no patrols on these trails. They can't do it. We already have trails. If people want to use trails, we already have them. And we already have walking trails. Has anybody been up on 177? There's beautiful trails up there. Has anybody been to Lions Falls? If you people have money for trails, why can't we use it to improve those trails? When I walk a trail, I have to pick up sticks, I have to move logs, I have to do that. Why don't we use the money to improve the trails that we already have? Lions Falls has a beautiful trail system. Nobody walks it. There's Agers Falls. People can walk that. Nobody's on that when I'm on it. I very seldom see people using those trails. We do not need another hiking trail. They're all over the Adirondacks, they're all over our area, and if we have money to spend on trails, then improve the ones that we already have. And It's going to increase everyone's taxes to do this. Anyone that lives along the railroad, you said it yourself, that it's going to increase the property value. What happens when our property value goes up? If I paint the porch, our taxes go up. If there's a rail trail in front of my house, my taxes are going to go up. We have raised 10 children, 9 of whom are still in the area raising their families. So don't tell me people are willing to leave. The only reason they want to leave is because of stuff like this. And they're sick and tired of it.
Okay, next we have Sherry Palmer.
Hi, my name is Sherry Palmer, and I guess I just wanted to briefly speak out to two things. One, I appreciate the work that you are doing to try to improve our community, and I know that you are all elected for the right reasons. You're trying to do good things for the community. And I also know that you are hearing what people are saying and are going to try to find a way to do good things for the community that is going to be considering all of the factors, and I trust that. I just wanted to point one of the factors as a pediatrician is I think it's important to have opportunities for safe recreation for our kids besides just on a ball field. And I do think it is true there's awesome hiking that is nice for family weekend things, but I think it would be terrific if there was recreation that kids could access safely during the week and not have to have it be just a family outing, but let them be able to ride a bike safely in town, for instance. So I am hopeful that there can be some sort of compromise worked out where I know you guys are going to weigh what people are saying and, you know, take advantage of resources that are available to our community to make it better and make it easier for safe recreation for all. So, thank you.
Thank you, Shereen. Next we have David Linedecker.
Well, everybody said pretty well what I'm thinking. I talked to one of the legislators and I said to him, isn't there a better way to spend money? And I give him some suggestions. And I guess you give the town of Croven Fire Department a big whopping $1,000. It's pretty nice of you. But you want to spend millions on the rail system. Makes a lot of sense. And I believe you've all voted in favor of it. Why? It don't make no sense to me. If you get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you work to 8 o'clock at night like I do, you think you're going to walk down a trail? You're going to go to bed at 8 o'clock. I don't get it. Why ain't you got your thinking cap on? I ain't saying no more. Just
David, that concludes the folks who have signed up. If there's anyone else that would like to address the board, you're welcome to come forward. If you wouldn't mind, state your name and town, please.
My name is Shirley Mary. And I am a strong supporter of the right to ride a bicycle safely. I want to thank you for sitting here tonight and calmly listening to this. It must be hard when you work so hard to listen to people be so unkind. I ride bicycle in Boonville on their trails. I've ridden in Rome on their trails. I've ridden in Syracuse on their trails. I've ridden in along the Black River Trail. There isn't any more debris than you would see walking down the street. I think it's important that we have places to ride safely. Riding on 812, a car came so close to me, I could have touched it if I reached out my hand. In this day and age, with so many distracted drivers, it's hard to find a safe place to ride. I've had two very good friends hit by bicycles. One, her bicycle was crumpled. I want a safe place for my grandchildren to ride. By the time you get it finished, I'll probably be too old to ride. But thank you very much for all your efforts to improve our life in Lowville. I appreciate it.
My name is Bruce Rohr. I live in the big city of Deer River. I'm a landowner along the line. Just one question has been, the issue about hunting season. So it's the intent that this would be, the trail would be open during hunting season?
Is that your only question?
Well, amongst all the other ones that are already brought up, the trespassing and all that. So just as a liability standpoint, how can we control, during that time of year?
So the county already has an extensive trail network that's managed by our Recreation, Forestry, and Parks Department. We work with, adjacent landowners on that to work with them about, hunting lands and those types of things. So there's a possibility that some of it, could be closed during hunting season. Depends on what the land is adjacent to.
Bruce, the current trail system closes Tuesday after Columbus Day and doesn't open until, and I'm not sure, Jackie, when does it open for snow?
After reindeer season.
After when?
Big game season.
So it opens.
So who's going to police that once again?
It's after hunting season.
All the legislators would love to see more law enforcement on the trails. We have not.
Can't hear ya.
All the legislators would love to see more law enforcement on the trails by actual police officers that can write tickets and actually do enforcement for reasons that we haven't been able to get there. Last year, we did an outside contract with a security firm to try to cover some of the gap. The feedback we got from that was positive. I can only say that we agree, we would love to have more enforcement, and we're still trying to figure out how to get there.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
Thank you. I'm Cheryl Sharpton. I'm an educator. I care very much for the children that I have worked with through the years. I see so many of our young people when they're for track, where they're running across streets. I see very closely some children who jeopardize their lives. I feel and I understand what the people are talking about here, but the safety for these children mean why I'm standing here now. Yes, in 2017, I bring my bicycle from here to Cowwells and Glenfield. I had a 10-foot shoulder that I felt would save for me, and then I was hit by a tractor trailer. I have 11 fractures on the left side, including a rod that I permanently have. A few weeks before then, another teacher was run right over with a truck and backed off again. I have a nephew who's no longer alive. He's 14 years old, running for track in Beaver Falls School. He was killed. His life was gone. Children mean so much. My husband and I have bicycle, Massachusetts, Michigan, Maine, along the Potomac where there are $1 million homes. People even have access to their homes from their home so they can benefit. I've seen people with walkers. I have seen people with little children pushing I've seen so many people coming into communities. They're along the trails, there are ice cream shops, bicycle shops, tourist places. And it also brings in revenue for our community. First of all, let's go back. Safety for our children. That's most important. And then go from there. But it does bring revenue. It does help benefit. It does all of these things that we're talking about. So thank you for your time.
Ryan, I'm just going to stand up, okay? You can hear me, right? You should know that. So I'm going to incriminate myself, legislators, okay? We talk about safety, about the patrols. Larry, I'm going to ask you directly. One is the reason that Carpinelli always gave us why he couldn't put more patrol on it. Let's be brutally honest. I'm incriminating myself. I'm part of this discussion. I was too. So what is the main reason why?
You have to ask the sheriff why.
Oh, no. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 legislators that sit up there that sat there with me.
Ryan, you don't need to ask that question. You know the
Yeah, okay, so then, okay, then I was, okay, let's keep this simple, okay? So, the main reason the sheriff always argued with us that he couldn't put on rep patrol, more patrol, is because we wouldn't give him the funding for it. With reason we had, mind you, there was reason behind it, but that is why we always felt that the funding wasn't there. Okay, that's not the case now. The funding's there now because we already heard that we can use this money pretty much for anything what we want. So the funding's there, and with the knowing that I understand that you don't want to use funding so much to expand employment because that's a one-time deal. But we keep saying that it's always the sheriff's fault. We as the legislators, and I don't even know if it goes back to Gary too, he might say that it does. It always goes back to the funding piece. So I understand working with Sheriff Carpinelli, we know that. I respect the sheriff, I know how that was. But it all comes down, everyone needs to know, it all comes down to money, okay? You have to know that. So thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay, if nobody else has any comments, that'll conclude our session tonight. Thanks everybody for the time. Oh, sorry. Yeah, come on.
My name is Mark Tabot. I live in the village of Lowville. I own land on the East Road, and the railroad tracks run through it. I know Mr. Sharpton said he's been there. Has anybody else been down the railroad tracks in that area? Have you been down, during the summer? How much bug spray and head nets and everything else? This runs through 3 miles of designated wetlands. It's a Castellan swamp. People I understand both sides of the argument. I like exercising too. I'm pretty sure this isn't the right area. I can't see somebody walking down there more than once. You cannot from May until August, you name it, black flies, deer flies, mosquitoes. If you get off the trail, there's going to be ticks. There's ticks there now. And, I agree with, like I said, something should be done for the youth, but I suggest you all walk that down there next summer in like July and see if you still have the same idea. Thank you.
Is there anybody else?
Mike Hershey, and 2 years ago, we had a person living in a trailer next to my property. He took his snowmobile, wasn't registered or nothing, running all over my property. I called the sheriff's department. The officer Liverger come over, said he couldn't do nothing. He wouldn't even go talk to the guy. He left the snowmobile on my property, and if this is the way we're going to patrol more trails, what's the problem with the county? If we can't patrol, and on my hill land, I called once on that. They tore the posting signs down and drove across the property. And he stopped the guy. He says he had insurance and registration, and that's all he done to him. So this is more than just patrolling and building more trails. We can't take care of what we got. Thank you.
Okay, going once, going twice. So the PowerPoint that we delivered tonight is on the county website, or will be soon. Okay, you get all those details. One last point that we want to make: the county has been and remains willing to meet with anybody, talk about your land in particular, go out to your property. We are absolutely open and want to engage more with folks that have concerns about this project. So, you know, that hand is always, the door is